My brothers and sisters, the evangelist, and particularly Matthew, interpret the life and ministry of Jesus in relation to the Old Testament. The first followers of Jesus, being Jews, started to compare the life of Jesus with that of the biblical stories in the Old Testament. In today's Gospel, Jesus comes to the disciples walking on the water. In the book of Job, we have something similar to this. In Job chapter 9 verse 8, we read about God. He and no other has stretched out the heavens and trembled the waves of the sea. Meaning, it's only God who can tremble the waves of the sea or walk on the water. So Matthew, through the narration of Jesus walking on the water, reveals the identity of Jesus as God. There are numerous occasions on which the evangelist repeat to us that Jesus withdrew alone to pray. With this, he also teaches us the need we have for that silent prayer, for being alone with the Father. In the Gospel, Jesus made the disciples get into the boat and go before him to the other side, where he would see them again. In the meantime, the boat was many furlongs distant from the land, beaten by the waves, for the wind was against them. And then Jesus came to them walking on the water. The disciples were terrified, mistaking him for a ghost, and cried out for fear. They did not recognize him. They did not realize that it was the Lord. Without a deep life of prayer, our existence also will be like that boat tossed about by the waves, upset by any difficulty, without roots, without stability. He who truly prays is feeding his life of faith. Prayer gives him eyes to know Jesus and discover him in everything, even in the midst of difficulties, suffering and trials. The lack of prayer, on the other hand, makes Jesus feel like a ghost, as something unreal. The passage then continues with the action of the Apostle Peter. He began to do something impossible for our human nature. Peter, impetuous as ever, jumps out of the boat and starts to walk across the water towards Jesus. But he seems to lose his nerve and begins to sink and cries out, "Lord, save me." Jesus grabs him and saves him from sinking. Here, Peter walks on the water, not by his own effort, but rather through divine grace in which he believes. And when he was smitten by doubt, and when he no longer fixed his gaze on Jesus, but was frightened by the gale, when he failed to put full trust in the Master's words, he risked sinking in the sea of life. So it is also for us. If we look only at ourselves, we become dependent on the winds and can no longer pass through storms on the waters of life. We need to fully trust in the Lord so as not to sink. Confidence does not consist in not having storms around, but in knowing that God is there with us, both in the storm and in the calm, both in the light and in the darkness. Sometimes we believe that what we achieve are our achievements, forgetting that we can do nothing if God does not do it for us. What we call our intelligence, our capacities, our abilities, are they really ours, or do they come from God? Certainly, there is an effort on our part. But even being able to make that effort is God's grace. The first reading of today brings us the passage of the prophet Elijah on Mount Horeb, when God revealed himself to him in the whisper of a gentle breeze. Elijah, the man of God, in the midst of idolatrous and unbelieving men, consciously seeks the presence of God and his loving intimacy. Actually, Elijah was fleeing from Queen Jezebel, who was looking for him to kill him. Elijah went to Mount Horeb. Why? We might recall that both Elijah and Moses had encountered God upon this mountain called Sinai or Horeb. Actually, these are two names for the same mountain. Here God was not in the wind, he was not in the earthquake, he was not in the fire. But Elijah found God in a gentle breeze on this holy mount. Here Elijah is given a new mission and a new strength. This indicates that God can reveal to us in a different manner. He is unpredictable. Sometimes he manifests himself in certain ways and sometimes in another. At times we can find God in silence and not in big manifestations. Brothers and sisters, today, like Peter, let us shout, "Lord, save me." And with the psalmist, we repeat, "Let us see, O Lord, your mercy, and give us your saving help." Amen.